It is that time again. It's winter. And you know what that means. This is the best time to be an Uber driver and a Lyft driver if you live in a snowy climate. So especially in the Northeast, Boston, New York, Chicago, any of these cities where you get snow, where the weather is going to be bad, it's going to be cold, people are going to be more likely to take a Lyft and Uber, and that means you can make significantly more money. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 Uber driver tips and Lyft driver tips to make more money during the winter. Number 1, just be safe. I want to make this as a quick point. I mean, as we all know, when it comes to winter driving and snow driving especially, you got to be a lot more careful, not just with you, but the passengers in your car, and of course, be more aware of all the other cars and surroundings on the road. Make sure you have the adequate items in your car to make sure your car doesn't have any snow or ice on the top of it. Make sure, like say, if you use snow tires, for example, that they're fully equipped and ready to go. I do have a link listed below in the description to a few different items on Amazon of different like scrapers and stuff you can use. But overall, just be aware that even though you are driving during the winter time and you can make a lot more money, there is a safety element as well, because it's a bit trickier when it comes to snow driving. Number 2, no limit. I feel like I'm going to sound like Lindsay Lohan from Mean Girls when it comes to the limit does not exist. But in this case, it is actually true. Now, in every other video I've done about Lyft and Uber, I always say, hey, you can really only make the big bucks during the peak hours. Now, every city is different, but overall, morning and evening commutes, you can make a lot of money, and Friday and Saturday nights. Those are the best times to drive. However, during the winter time, that is thrown out the window, which is amazing because if there's any situation that happens, like say it snows and it's around Tuesday at 1 p.m., you can make an insane amount of money. I still remember the first time this happened to me. I got out of the gym. I love working out around midday. It was around 1 p.m. and it was heavily snowing in Boston. I was like, you know what? I'm kind of curious, what would it be like if I drove at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday? Normally, you really couldn't make that much money. But during that time, high surges, and I remember making insane money comparable to a Friday night. So remember that during the winter time, although yes, during the peak hours, you are still going to make a lot more money on top of the normal peak hour kind of surge and the amount you can make, with the snow added, almost any time can be a peak hour time. There really is no limit to how many peak hours pop up. So just be aware that any single time it snows, let's say it's heavy rain, let's say it's just super cold, let's say the public transportation breaks down, everybody in Boston knows that the T breaks down all the time. So when you combine snow plus the T breaking down and everybody needs to get around and there's snow and it's cold, massive fares, massive surges. It doesn't matter what time it is. There's no limit to the peak hour type money you can make at any time. Number 3, early rising. This is something you might start doing inevitably without even knowing it, but it is something just to be kind of aware of. And that is when I was driving in Boston, I expected during the winter time to wake up earlier than I normally would, especially like say in the morning commutes, or I kind of start getting ready to drive earlier than normal for any other peak hour, mainly for 2 reasons. One is, as you can imagine, with snow, you have to shovel out your car. You have to make sure that all that snow is removed off the top, that your car can actually get out of your driveway. I mean, it might be in a garage, wherever you park your car, but overall, you want to make sure that you can get on the road pretty much at the best time possible. The second thing, and this is a slight one, but it is important, is to make sure your car is comfortable on the inside. When it's cold outside, people love that feeling of getting into a vehicle that's super warm, super cozy even, I'll say. They want that kind of nice feeling of getting in and being like, oh, now I don't have to deal with the cold and especially the wind, as we all know, and all these kind of harsh elements. Overall, just be aware that especially during the winter time when it's snowing and everything, you might have to spend a little more work to actually get out on the road, but it's well worth it, like I said, because the money is there. Number 4, floor mats. Just get these. They're going to save you a huge hassle. I will link this below in the description to pick up some in that huge list that I mentioned earlier of all these different items for winter driving. Just get these because, as we all know, when it comes to people bouncing around in a heavily trafficked city, it's not necessarily the snow, but it's everything else. You're talking about all the dirt, all that kind of snow melting mix, like the salt and all these other stuff, and that can get heavily in all of your carpets and everything on your floor. It's not the easiest thing to clean up, which means you might have to get your car detailed a little bit more. And of course, having your car look nice and presentable does really go a long way. And that way, at the end of every day, you just take out the floor mat, dump it on the ground, you're good to go. Number 5, the early drop-off. I've mentioned this pro tip in a few other videos, but summing it up, especially during the winter time, this is important. And that is, as you're approaching, like say, a very busy street, the more snow, the more stuff that's going on in the winter, the more congested, busier streets become. For example, in Boston, I remember a street called Lansdowne, a bunch of bars, and to go from one end of the street to the other end with all the traffic and people trying to get to the bar, get in line, people getting dropped off, you're looking at maybe 10 minutes, but during the winter time, it's almost double. It's way worse. So the early drop-off is a great pro tip, and what you do is, as you're approaching a busy street, you say to the people in the car, being, hey, just letting you know, looking at the street, it could be 20 minutes for us just to go 1/8 of a mile to get you to the bar. If you want, I can drop you off here. That way we're not sitting waiting in this traffic and you get to the bar quicker. Now, in most cases, people say yes, and it's a win-win. It's a win for them because they get to the bar sooner. They're not just sitting there being like, should we just get out now? I mean, come on, like, it's right there. Like, we should just get out. But also, too, it's a win for you because you don't have to be sitting in that traffic where you're basically making no money. And also, we've all been there where the second you get into that traffic and now you're boxed in with another car behind you, someone says, we'll just get out here. And now you're like, great, we could have done this before I turned onto the street or whatever. Now, yes, there are some situations where maybe it's so cold, people don't want to get out. Let's say it's really icy. They're like, hey, you know what? We'd rather just wait for the bar. Let's say it's a bunch of girls wearing high heels, for example, and they don't want to have to walk a very long distance, whatever the case is. And sometimes people don't mind waiting, getting to that bar through the traffic. And that's understandable. But in most cases, a lot of people are really happy about the early drop-off. And this way saves you a lot of time, especially during the winter time when the peaks are super high and there's high surges and a lot of money to be made. It gets you on the road quicker. And now, a bonus tip, and I saved the best for last, is alerts. This is the most important one on this list. Now, I mentioned on point number 2 that this is the best time to drive and there's no limit. It really wasn't a pro tip, as more as something to be aware of, that there's a lot of money to be made. And this one kind of goes hand in hand with that, to make sure you somehow set up alerts on your phone. So during the winter time, I made sure I had the MBTA app on my phone, the T in Boston, or the public transportation, and I had alerts on my phone. That way, any single time the T would break down, I get a quick notification, boom. I made sure to jump right in my car, get everything ready, and I'd be good to go. I also would check the weather app on my phone as much as possible. Let's say it's a random Monday. As most of you know, I'm a DJ, an electronic musician, and a YouTuber. And let's say that week I have a bunch of stuff going on with music and YouTube and whatever. But let's say I saw, wow, on Thursday and Friday, we're getting a nor'easter, a wicked bad snowstorm in Boston. I would actually rearrange my schedule, plan to get a bunch of work done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, block off Thursday and Friday, because that was driving time. That was the time to make a lot of money. Make sure you set up some type of alert system on your phone. Make sure every week you check out the weather, see, let's say, if there's any big sporting events going on, because as you can imagine, with any big events combined with the snow, that also equals a lot more money. I will say, I know in Boston, the public transportation breaks down probably more than any other city. So I will say that, but just kind of look and do some research to figure out, okay, in my city, what are certain things that happen during the winter time that a lot more people are ordering a Lyft and Uber? Not just snow, but is there anything else that goes on that you know you can make a lot of money? Like I said with Boston, the T always breaking down was a gold mine to drive. Make sure you do some research and check it out in your own city. Set up those alerts, because once a big event happens, whether it's a snowstorm, something else happening, that is your time to get on the road and make an insane amount of money.